We are going to be taking up SB 679 by Senator Kamlager. Senator Kamlager is ready. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 679 by Senator Kamlager, an act relating to housing.
Senator Kamlager, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am pleased to present SB 679, which will create the Los Angeles County Affordable Housing Solutions Agency, also known as La Casa. I want to first thank the PT, the Majority Leader Emeritus, my staff, Balkis Awan, and the hundreds of advocates who've worked tirelessly on this bill. This agency represents a single, accountable, independent approach to housing for Los Angeles County. It will support low-income renters, preserve housing that is affordable, and innovate new ways to create affordable housing in every community, because too many people are being pushed out and left behind. We have spent the last year building consensus and support for this proposal at the local level, because we were led by locals and not just by Sacramento. And as a result, this bill is stronger than where we started. We were motivated to keep working even after the setback of last year and having this bill stalled, because Los Angeles County is the largest county in the nation, and ranks last in the nation in housing affordability, overcrowding, and unsheltered homelessness. It ranks last. More than half of the people in Los Angeles County are rent burdened. More than half of the single women in Los Angeles County are rent burdened. The cost of housing is crushing, and today's vote is about reducing that burden. It is about helping families spend their precious dollars on their children, not on their rent. I am so proud to be part of the Los Angeles County delegation, which has been working hard to find solutions to our crisis. This is one of those solutions, and it is why no member of the Los Angeles County delegation voted against the bill in the Assembly. I'd like to address some of the misconceptions and concerns that have been raised about this bill and to clear them up. The beauty and the importance of this is that everyone is in it together. That is why opting in was never an option. The power of solution and accountability come from everyone participating. San Gabriel Valley asked for some significant amendments, which we worked hard on, which include ensuring that the San Gabriel Valley Housing Trust has a guaranteed amount of annual funding that it can self-administer. That is in the bill. The legislation approved by the Senate last year had 2 seats for the San Gabriel Valley subregion and 1 seat each for other big subregions, Gateway cities, South Bay cities, and San Fernando, plus the North Valley. We actually worked to keep this breakdown in the Assembly. We were led by that. But it became clear that there was not significant support from the Assembly or, frankly, from the locals and the rest of the Los Angeles County cities. The solution, negotiated over the last 12 months in Los Angeles by cities and by county representatives, and which is in the current bill, was to allocate 1 seat per region plus an additional at-large seat that rotates between the regions every 4 years. We also added an additional at-large seat for cities under 100,000 people and which are in the top half of housing burden, with the San Gabriel Valley having the seat first for 4 years as stipulated in the letter to the Journal. This is a good, fair solution. And yes, it requires compromise. That is concurrence. It is also about fairness, especially in a county that houses millions of people and is buckling under the critique of being segregated, incoherent, and of not working together to address our housing crisis. This bill is a strong, fair compromise supported across the county at the local level. There have been claims that I committed a jailbreak. So, I'm a black woman, and jailbreak and black woman do not go together. This bill stalled in the Assembly like so many other housing bills. And once it garnered the support that it needed over there, it went to the floor and came here and underwent the normal process through which bills are considered and referred. There have been suggestions that this wait another year. We can't punt this another year. 2023 is the year to create the agency's strategic business plan and draft the ballot measure. 2024 is when signatures are gathered. Waiting kills the ability to prepare for the ballot year, just like waiting and having it stalled out last year stalled this effort to have that happen in 2022. It is not every day that we see a coalition of labor, small cities and large cities, the county, housing justice advocates, businesses, all coming together to say yes, but today is that day. I know there have also been questions raised about my integrity, and that's been called into question. And I'm sorry that there are some people that are unhappy, especially after all of the collaborative work that has been done, led by locals, and quite frankly, informed by locals and facilitated by the chair of the Los Angeles Board of Supervisors, Supervisor Holly Mitchell, who facilitated these discussions over the course of this year. Her office and other offices at the Board of Supervisors actively engaged, building consensus, answering questions, and being led by fairness. So I would ask that we refocus back to the integrity of the people who need this bill, who are rent burdened, who suffer from not having access to affordable housing, all within Los Angeles County, who are struggling and who are asking us to be righteous in putting them first. I appreciate Assemblymember Holden, who chairs the Assembly Appropriations and represents a portion of the San Gabriel Valley and helped get it over to the Senate. I appreciate and thank my 7 Senate colleagues from Los Angeles County who have been strong co-authors. I once again want to appreciate Supervisor Mitchell, who was here today, who not only supports this bill, but was very involved in negotiating the governance structure of it. And I would respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Kamlager. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. I rise as a proud co-author of SB 679, which will create, as mentioned by the good senator from Los Angeles and my colleague, which will provide critical resources for cities across LA County. I represent Long Beach in Southeast Los Angeles, and this bill has been supported by them as well, both a large city and a smaller cities. If current housing production rates continue, we'd create only 30,000 units of affordable to low income and very low income for households in California and in Los Angeles particularly. SB 679 takes this issue head on, of course, by providing technical assistance and capacity funding for small cities like the Southeast cities that I represent, and to allow them to update their general plans. And I think the latest amendments are pretty fair. They ensure that the 4 largest regions in the county will each have 1 dedicated seat and an additional rotating at-large seat to share. And the smaller cities, I think that's another credible compromise as well. For smaller cities under 100,000 in population, who are particularly impacted by housing costs, have a seat at the table as well. And I will say, as the senator from Los Angeles mentioned, there have been hundreds of housing advocates in the largest county in the state of California that have come together. I hear every day about this issue on 679 and how much we have to support it. We cannot wait any longer. And so for that reason and more, I will certainly support the bill, and I ask my colleagues to do the same thing. We need housing solutions now. We cannot wait any longer. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Gonzalez. We're going to go to Senator Cortese, followed by Senator Rubio. Senator Cortese, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President, and colleagues. I rise in support of SB 679. And if you're wondering why a senator from the Bay Area is rising to speak on a bill that's largely impacting the County of Los Angeles, I'll explain that in just a second. First and foremost, as Los Angeles goes in terms of housing production, there goes the rest of the state of California. And I would say the Bay Area follows as a close second. If you look at the background and the analysis of this bill, you'll see that, or you'll be reminded for most of you, because most of you were here, I wasn't, but in 2019, Assemblymember Chu introduced a bill that was signed into law that created BAFA, or BAFA, depending on how you want to pronounce it, the Bay Area Housing Finance Agency. And that, to some degree, has become a template for this bill. And let me just, if I may, read from the analysis directly.
Without objection.
Thank you. One sentence, just one sentence. Specifically, that bill provided the Association of Bay Area Governments and the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, acting as BAFA, with new tools to raise billions of dollars to fund the production, preservation, and protection of affordable housing. That's what's being attempted here in Los Angeles County. That's what we've been fighting so hard for over the last session, or the first year of this session, and this session. And frankly, we've been applauded for making the difficult calls and voting on the tough bills to get housing production going. This is as important as any other housing production bill, as far as I'm concerned, that we've taken up over this 2-year session. Again, what's then my perspective, if I may? Where I was not here, but I was on the Metropolitan Transportation Commission and had been serving 2 years as the chair. There are two more of our colleagues in this Senate who served and participated in that process. Governance is always an issue. Let's face it. I mean, we didn't have to deal with governance issues. 99% of our problems would go away. That's always an issue, and that shouldn't hold up a bill like this, because this bill is enabling legislation, and that has to come first. If you don't enable standing up a finance agency like this, the rest of the conversation can't happen. Nobody can do the work to go out and raise revenue. No one can put anything on the ballot. Nobody's going to expend the energy. What they say down there in Los Angeles is, why should we do that when the legislature hasn't even given us the enabling legislation to put this forward? That's what happened in the Bay Area. And once we realized that, people came together and said, let's support this legislation. We could have killed it as a Bay Area. Let's support this legislation. Let's get the authority to stand up this agency, and then we'll come together like we always have to work out the final governance issues, to figure out who's going to run the campaigns to bring the revenue in. And as you can read from the analysis in this bill, that has been successful. If we can be successful in the Bay Area, Los Angeles County can be successful with the same model. And I would strongly urge, and I vote on this bill.
Thank you, Senator Cortese. Senator Rubio.
Thank you, Mr. President. As a strong advocate for affordable housing solutions, I rise with heavy heart to oppose this measure. As amended in the Assembly, we all agree that we need housing to help our communities. We all agree that more needs to be done to protect and create affordable housing in California and Los Angeles. That's not in question. To address the amendments and how they impact my district, I personally work with all my cities to create the San Gabriel Valley Regional Housing Trust, which in less than 4 years has helped create over 550 affordable housing units, provided 105 beds of homeless housing, has completed 3 tiny home sites where the unhoused get 3 meals a day, a warm bed, and wraparound services. So I understand that it's very different for everyone else on this floor. To my colleagues and allies in Los Angeles County, who I work closely with, respect, and care about, I was not originally opposed to this bill. It was a matter of sitting down with the author to discuss how this bill moved forward while respecting the communities like mine that already have a successful housing trust that they pay into. And just to be clear, a lot of my cities in the San Gabriel Valley have been calling me, asking me not to support this bill, including members of the San Gabriel Valley Regional Housing Trust and the COG. When the bill was in trouble, and it was, and there was urgency because they needed to get this bill on, they needed to work on the ballot measure. We did just that. We sat down with the author to discuss how can we be supportive? How do we put our energy to make sure that this is successful? And we did sit down, and there was commitments made. And what we did to help expedite the bill, despite my concerns and my district's opposition, I put my name behind that based on commitments that were made to me that I can take back to my community. But here we are with a different version that left the Senate. The explicit commitments to me and to the appropriation chair to get the bill out to help meet the November ballot was that it would not move if those commitments were not honored. And why are these commitments important to my district? Respectfully, the San Gabriel Valley has historically been underserved by countywide housing policies. This is not new. I was a council member for 9 years, and I saw that happen. When Los Angeles County passed Measure H, a tax that taxed all our small cities to raise funding to address housing and homelessness, it failed to deliver on its promise. We're still here with the same issue, housing and homelessness. And this is where my regional housing trust, along with our COG's effort, came to be, because our issues were not being resolved. So we decided that we needed to take matters into our own hands and create a housing trust that was going to help us directly. And this is just one of many examples of how we always try to help LA County. We collaborate, we help, we pay taxes, but not always do we get what we deserve in return. Our regional housing trust, which is now 22 cities members, not just my city, 22 cities that cross 4 Senate districts, is part of this coalition of individuals who are already helping to solve the homeless crisis. No other community represented on this floor, so I understand how we're feeling, no other community on this floor has a trust that's already being successful. Without the commitments made to my district by the author, to me and the appropriations chair to help the bill get out, I don't think we would be having this conversation. Measure H failed to deliver on its promise. This has the potential to fail to deliver on its promise. And I have to go back to my district, who never wanted this to begin with some promises I made based on those commitments. And I cannot do that. I'm choosing to stand with the San Gabriel Valley, my district, my cities, who are adamantly opposed. Yes, there's some that do want it, but that's everyone individually. From what I heard, my district doesn't want it, and I'm still here willing to be supportive, but I expect commitments to be made and kept. A commitment is a commitment. There is no such thing as a partial commitment, half a commitment. And I respectfully ask all of you colleagues for an aye vote.
Can we recognize Senator Rubio's microphone one more time, please?
Thank you. I respectfully ask for a no vote. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Senator Rubio. Senator Portantino will be followed by Senator Bradford. Senator Portantino.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. Like my colleague from the San Gabriel Valley, I rise with a heavy heart. This is only the second time in my 12 years in the legislature that I've had to rise on an issue in this vein. When I was a freshman assembly member, there was a more seasoned colleague who made a commitment during the committee process and then didn't keep that commitment. And I put my microphone up when I was in the assembly and I said, a commitment was made, a commitment wasn't followed, and I asked the body to support the integrity of the commitment. And lo and behold, about 75 of the 80 members supported the process and laid off the bill. We're here today, frankly, because many of us helped get this bill out of this House based on a series of commitments. It did not have a hearing in its current form in the Appropriations Committee because of a procedural matter. It went to the Government and Finance Committee. And we in the Appropriations, though we didn't have a chance to input the amendments, I signed off on those amendments with the understanding that those would be ironclad commitments and amendments. Let me say that again. When the Government and Finance Committee chair came and said, this is what we needed to do so we can get it on the November ballot, I agreed to those commitments and I agreed to those amendments. So this is a jailbreak from that commitment. This is a violation of that commitment. There can be no mistake, there can be no disagreement about that. That is the only reason why this bill moved. And that's why I'm raising my microphone in support of my colleague from Baldwin Park who negotiated those amendments. Now, subsequent to that original commitment, there were at least 6 other, let me say that again, 6 other times where we were told in no uncertain terms that unless the bill reverted back to its original form, it would not even come up for a vote on this House. It would not even come up for a vote. So number one, we all support the need for housing in Los Angeles County. We all rallied behind the notion of putting this on the November ballot so it could happen. That is no longer germane. We have the time to come back in January to craft something that will be doable for the entire LA County and get it on the next ballot. So this idea that we can't do that, that's false. The idea that there was no commitment, that's false. There was. So the other thing that I want to address is how we do what we do is just as important as what we do. Frances Hesselbein, who led the Girl Scouts, once heard her lecture say, we spend most of our time learning how to do things, but not how to be. This is our moment in the state Senate of how to be. This is our moment in the state Senate to say, there are no small commitments, there's just commitments. If we allow a process to continue, if we allow something to progress based on commitments that are not kept, this institution doesn't function. We just came through a time where we all talked wonderfully about the institution of the Senate. We all talked about how we're different and how the integrity of the House and how special we are. Well, if during the committee process we make commitments and those commitments aren't kept and we still say it's okay, then that takes a little bit of a shine off of this place. And I'm not willing to do that. I'm not willing to do that. Let me speak to the jailbreak situation. Many of you have come to me when Appropriations has put amendments into a bill that you may not have liked. And you've come to me and say, hey, can you authorize a jailbreak? And in almost every single instance, I've said no. Because how do I look you in the eye and say yes and then say no to somebody else? How do I accept this jailbreak today and then turn around to one of my colleagues from Northern or Southern California and say no to them? I have tried to be even keel and consistent in how we institute the norms and the standards of the appropriations process. This goes beyond that because of the commitments that were negotiated and made. This constitutes a jailbreak from what was agreed to get it out of the appropriations process. This isn't easy. Having members on opposite sides of an issue, that's not easy. The policy discussion, it's laudable. It's important. We need it. But we also need to stand behind our commitments. We also need to stand behind what it means to be on this floor and look somebody in the eye and say, this is what I'm going to do. And many of you come to me after committee hearings and say, so-and-so made a commitment, so-and-so made a commitment. Try to enforce it. And I do the best I can to do that. If we don't enforce it on this floor, and colleagues, if we allow 679 to move off this floor, we are fundamentally saying that commitments don't matter going forward. We are fundamentally saying that you can say whatever you want, that the ends justify the means. And there's that Bible quote that says, what profits a man if he inherits the whole world but loses their soul? If we let 679 off this floor, we're going to lose a little piece of our soul. We have the time in January. I'm committed to working on this issue, to bringing the San Gabriel Valley together, to bringing those housing trusts together, to make sure that we progress something that's fair, that builds housing, that solves the problem. But what I'm not willing to do is sit quietly when my colleague from the San Gabriel Valley negotiated a deal in good faith, put her reputation on the line, her commitment on the line, and helped move this bill out of this House. I'm not willing to let that get pushed aside. I'm not willing to let those commitments go by the wayside. This is too important not to do according to the standards and practices of this House, and I respectfully ask for you all to lay off SB 679.
Thank you, Senator Portantino. Senator Bradford.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I rise as co-author and strong support of this measure, and I'm somewhat miffed at the description of this being a jailbreak when much of what we do throughout my 12 years, we can pretty much categorize 20% of the stuff we do as jailbreaks because they change drastically from the original intent of a bill. But this is honoring what was discussed through the LA County delegation when we started talking about housing earlier this year. And as we all know, much of what we're voting for over the next 3 days or the last 3 days, a lot has changed and a lot we haven't seen in great detail, but we were willing to move forward and vote on it. Our colleague from LA has negotiated in good faith with great passion for trying to come up with a measure that works. Is it perfect? Does it solve all the ills and challenges that we face in housing? No, but it's a step that's needed. It's long overdue. I've been here for 12 years and we have not fixed the housing crisis. It's only gotten worse. And here's an opportunity to allow the voters to decide to move forward in a measure that is inclusive, that is thoughtful, and it's needed. And again, to describe it as just some radical, jailbreak is, I totally disagree. And all the amendments in that bill were agreed upon and strongly supported by LA County Board of Supervisors as well. And I'm pretty sure if it wasn't, we would have heard from them. So it maintains the integrity of how we started. Yes, there's some changes here, but I strongly ask for an aye vote here.
Thank you, Senator Bradford. Senator Eggman.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. I have an actual question. I don't have a housing trust, and I don't have a dog in this fight necessarily. I'm way up in Stockton where we have our own set of crises all the time. But does this, and I don't know if it's to the author or to the senator from San Gabriel Valley, but will this then subsume the San Gabriel Valley Housing Trust, or will people be taxed twice? Or can you describe to me how that works?
Senator Eggman, would you like to address that to the author?
Yes.
Senator Eggman, or Senator Kamlager, would you take a question?
Can I address it in my close?
Then I'd like to ask the question of the senator from San Gabriel Valley.
That the San Gabriel Housing Authority is not a taxing authority, and so they would not be double taxed. They have asked for money in the budget, and I believe that was in the budget. They have also, because of their request, been given a certain set aside to go specifically to their trust, additional funding to help them self-administer, which they would be allowed to self-administer.
So their trust doesn't go away?
No. And in fact, we expanded the language through the course of negotiations with cities across the county and the county so that there would be funding set aside for each housing trust that is either in existence or that crops up, so that they would also be able to self-administer those funds. Right. This is about a high tide rising all boats. And collectively, if the heft and the weight of the county and all of the cities that represent the county can finance money, privately or publicly, to allow for affordable housing to be built, billions more money because of the size of the authority that is far greater than all of these little cities working haphazardly or incoherently or doing one-offs to try to raise from a much smaller tax base, because we've seen that. We've seen it happen, and it hasn't been successful.
Okay, so
Thank you,
I mean, just
Kamlager. Senator Eggman, you are still recognized on the floor. It's your recognition. You may continue.
To answer the
thank you very much. So that is helpful, and I understand then the point more. So because I represent the city of Stockton, which is, you know, the biggest city in 3 counties around us, 2 counties, 3 counties, I don't know. And so so then I understand the issue then from the perspective of people from Ripon or Escalon, that they feel like Stockton's going to get it all because they have the biggest need, and the smaller cities won't get as much. So, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Eggman. Senator Portantino, I know you're waiting to be recognized, but we haven't cycled through everybody that's spoken once already. So according to the Senate traditions, we'll recognize you a second time after everybody's been recognized for the first time. Senator Durazo.
Thank you, Mr. President. LA County is not only the largest county in the country, LA County is larger than 41 states, okay? It's larger than 41 states. In order for us to deal with the housing issues, there's no way of doing that without a centralized, coordinated, smart, innovative body representing the various parts of that county. I don't see any other way of addressing it. We have housing crisis issues across the county. There is not a single area, well, maybe Beverly Hills, I don't know, San Marin or Beverly Hills. But for the most part, everybody could claim some version. And the more you are in the middle, the more serious and more dramatic is the crisis that we're facing. So to me, that's the issue. Come on, that's the issue. We have to be given the opportunity to address that in a similar way to the transportation. There's a regional transportation. They function together. There's some representation. Not every city has the same representation. That's impossible. There are 88 cities in the county of Los Angeles. 88 cities. Not every city is going to get the same kind of representation on the board. There has to be a smart way of giving representation without every city getting everything that they deserve. I don't argue with that. But we have to find a different way of addressing our housing crisis, and that is what should matter. You know, all the other things that happen here amongst the Senate are rules. I see rules changing all the time. I see how we address those rules happen differently all the time because we have to keep moving forward. And I just want to thank the author because she has spent almost 2 years committed and devoted to this, and nobody else has done that for the county of Los Angeles. For the county of Los Angeles, nobody else has done that. 100 organizations, from the Business Central City Association to Chrysalis to ACE, which is probably picketed and marched in front of everybody's office across Los Angeles. This is an extraordinary coalition effort of 100 community-based organizations. Are we going to have bumps in the road? Yes. But my God, the most important thing that should matter in making this decision is how are we going to solve the housing issues, the crisis, the homelessness, on the edge of homelessness. That's what that should be foremost in making a decision on this, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Terrazzo. Senator Portantino.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. I rise. There's nothing haphazard about the 22-city housing trust in the San Gabriel Valley. There's nothing haphazard about the 3-city Burbank, Glendale, Pasadena housing trust that was created this year through legislation. These are earnest cities trying to solve the housing crisis. My colleague from Baldwin Park is already crafting legislation to give these housing trusts taxing authority. So to answer that question or to respond to it, this would create a situation where those cities would be taxed twice. That is not acceptable. And to listen to some of my colleagues suggest that the ends justify the means and that integrity and how we do things doesn't matter because the end game is all that matters, I don't know. My widowed mother in New Jersey didn't teach me to think that we should have situational ethics. And when I went through the campaign process and folks asked me to make commitments, and I made commitments, they expected me to keep my word. We have a system that is built on keeping our word, and if we don't, a pox on us.
Senator Rubio.
Thank you once again. And I know this may be a little confusing to those that are not from our area and don't understand just the disparity, in my opinion, of what LA is, the actual city of Los Angeles, versus a small city like mine, Baldwin Park. And so just to be clear, no one is opposing them creating a housing trust. In fact, I was not opposed to creating a housing trust. That's why I sat with several senators to get some commitments, was given commitments, and here we are discussing why those commitments were broken. But I want to clarify one other thing. You know, the author said that no member of the LA delegation voted against this. So I will share very clearly and specifically, they thought it was the deal that was given, including my assembly member, and the bill passed with 42 votes. I ask you, 42 votes, including my assembly members, who thought that the deal was reached, and that's what we were honoring. So I just want to make sure, again, because I respect my LA colleagues, and I also sat with many of them when they were asking me how I did it, what were the pros and the cons. I sat hours with so many trying to give my input on how ours was successful. I did it because I want LA Housing Trust to be successful. That's what I was trying to reach, a place where we can work together, help LA be successful, and I was willing to be part of that despite the opposition from my district. So wanted to be clear because I know that people don't understand the difference between LA and my city. So I'm gonna give you one example. I talked about Measure H, where we get taxed and it goes to Los Angeles County. One city, $2.2 million. One of my small cities, $2.2 million. And they only got $69,000 back to solve housing and homelessness. I want you to consider that. $69,000 doesn't do anything after they put $2.2 million in. And that's just one city. Right now we have 22 cities. And this will take our ability to create our own funding stream. And again, for the record, this is not in opposition to creating that housing trust. It was just a matter of following through with those commitments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Rubio. Seeing no other senators wishing to be recognized, Senator Kamlager, you can close.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have any verses or pros, but I do want to restate some facts. That there are no existing local tax dollars flowing into the San Gabriel Valley Trust, so it wouldn't be double taxed. I want to reiterate that this is supported by the chair of the San Gabriel Valley Regional Housing Trust. I want to reiterate that the San Gabriel Valley COG was actively involved and at the table every step of the way. I want to reiterate that those discussions were facilitated by the chair of the Los Angeles Board of Supervisors, who is here on the floor today to validate the truth of that statement. To validate the truth of that statement. I want to say that I'm not a liar, that the commitments that were made were 2 seats for the San Gabriel Valley, dedicated funding to the trust, and technical assistance. And those are all in the bill. The second seat rotates with all of the sub-regions of the cities that represent the county, because everyone wants an additional seat at the table, because everyone is suffering from the lack of affordable housing. But the San Gabriel Valley is getting it first for 4 years, honoring those 3 commitments. There was never a commitment to not move the bill. If there had been other commitments, we would have reintroduced it this year, because you know what? It stalled last year. If things had really broken down, we would have gone back to the drawing board. We would have gone back to the drawing board. But hundreds of organizations, churches, cities, the senator from Los Angeles mentioned the city of Beverly Hills. They support it. Said we need this because we all need it, and we can't do it alone, and it's not working when we do it by ourselves. Compromise is part of this House, I thought. Concurrence happens when a bill goes to the other side. I've never had a bill that has been pure and that has remained the same from the point of inception to when it is passed on and delivered to the governor. I've never had that happen. And it didn't happen this time. But we led. We led with the San Gabriel Valley before gateway cities, before the South Bay, before the Valley. And we did all we could to get the 3 things that were discussed. This is not Measure H. This is not Measure H. I'm not going to speak to Measure H. I'm speaking to the Los Angeles Regional Housing Authority and the hundreds of folks who spend thousands of hours on a weekly basis with Los Angeles City and the County of Los Angeles to come to an agreement that would help everyone. I want to say that the origin story of this bill, the origin story of this bill, the origin story of this bill is the Los Angeles County delegation. 5 years ago, this delegation decided to come back together, and it took us a while to get organized. And we began to hold retreats. And in one of our retreats not long ago, we sat together in person and then on a Zoom, and we said, let's be bold, let's be unified. There are a few issues that are impacting all of our cities and the county, and let's fight together on them. Mental health was one, homelessness was one, and housing. And we said, let's be aspirational, and it won't be about my district, it won't be about my municipality, it won't be about someone else's municipality. It will be about the whole region, the cities Los Angeles City, and the county. That's the origin story of this bill. Not me, not one person from Southgate, not one person from Paramount. Everyone coming together. Because everyday people in Los Angeles are not thinking about us, and they are not thinking about their politics. They are thinking about the fact that their housing options are slimming and their housing costs are rising. And they are asking us to do better on their behalf, from Paramount to Pasadena, from West Hollywood to West Covina, from Lancaster to Lakewood to Lawndale, from Century City to Covina and Compton. That is what they are asking, from Santa Monica to Sierra Madre. And we can punt this and put it off because we're fighting for the thing that we want, or we can step into the future and rise above the melee and do what's right for the millions of people across all of Los Angeles County who are asking us to say yes to this bill. There is a reason why the Los Angeles Times has been tracking this bill and writing about it on multiple occasions and calling it a disappointment when it wasn't passed last year, and a travesty if it dies this time. Because the existential threat in Los Angeles, in all of the county of Los Angeles, is housing, affordable housing, and this will allow us to raise funding to finance 100% affordable housing. And that is the truth. And my commitment was to make sure that we passed something that worked for the folks who need it the most, those who are unhoused and burdened by the cost of housing across the county of Los Angeles. I respectfully, humbly, gratefully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Kamlager. Secretary, please call the roll.
Allen, Archuleta, Atkins, Bates, no. Becker, Borges, no. Bradford, aye. Caballero, Cortese, aye. Daly, aye. Dodd, Durazo, aye. Eggman, Glazer, Gonzalez, aye. Grove, Hertzberg, aye. Wesso, Hurtado, Jones, no. Kamlager, aye. Laird, Leyva, aye. Limon, McGuire, aye. Melendez, Min, Newman, aye. Nielsen, Ochoa Bogue, Pan, Portantino, no. Roth, Rubio, no. Skinner, Stern, aye. Umberg, Wajkowski, aye. Wiener, aye. Wilk.
We'll call the absent members one time. Please call the absent members.
Allen, aye. Archuleta, Atkins, aye. Becker, Caballero, Dodd, Eggman, Glazer, Grove, Wesso, Hurtado, Laird, aye. Limon, aye. Melendez, Min, Nielsen, Ochoa Bogue, Pan, Roth, Skinner, aye. Umberg, Wilk.
Thank you. We'll try one more time to call the roll for the absent members. Secretary, please call the roll.
Archuleta, Becker, Caballero, Dodd, Eggman, aye. Glazer, Grove, Wesso, Hurtado, Melendez, Min, Nielsen, Ochoa Bogue, Pan, Roth, Umberg, Wilk.
Senator Kamlager moves the call.